Welcome back here to Mountain Connections. I'm very excited to be joined by Mrs. Kris Barney. She is a leadership and communication keynote speaker as well as an author, and she's here to talk about her book, Leadership Inside and Out. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, thank you. Thanks
Excellent.
for having me.
Absolutely, thank you so very much for coming on. We appreciate it. So let's talk about Leadership Inside Out, your book. What is this all about?
Well, I like to start with the ugly truth, because the frank conversation about leadership is that it starts from the inside. And when we stop looking to everyone else to lead us and we start looking deep down within ourselves, it does away with excuses. We stop the blame game. We start with more accountability and moving forward in our own life in a new way. And so I always ask the question, are you the leader you would follow?
I love that. That's a great question, because I think a lot of the time, as you say, we do a great job at being able to kind of compartmentalize and move a lot of the things that we don't like onto other people, onto other situations. So it's great to be able to take self-accountability and self-responsibility and really take life into your own hands, really, and be the leader that you want to be. So what's the first key to being able to do that, to internalize these things and really to ask yourself these questions?
Well, when you ask yourself that question, it makes you take a deeper reflection of yourself, and you say, okay, if I'm not being that leader, what do I need to change? And when we all look at that for ourselves, we stop comparing ourselves to others, and we start looking at what we could do ourselves to have a better effect, to be more successful. And when we do that, we change ourselves. We start focusing on the positive. We focus on what is happening, not what's not happening.
Or what could be happening.
Right.
Yeah.
And we project ourselves in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And when we see that in the workforce, then everyone changes. Because I believe everybody's a leader.
I was about to say, I think this goes way beyond being a manager or in a general manager position or being an executive position. I think this goes right to walking in on your first day and being a bottom level employee. I think the trajectory to getting to that position is being someone who has these qualities.
Exactly. I mean, a teacher is a leader. A parent is a leader. A child can be a leader. How many times do we look at our children and learn something and go, wow.
Yeah.
Like, they just schooled me,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
And so many times if we will just allow ourselves to see it differently, every single person's a leader. And you'd be surprised at who's watching when you're not thinking they are.
That's great. Let's talk about that a little bit more, because I think that's a great point. I think that there are people who don't see themselves as leaders, but don't realize that they have probably a big group of people looking up to them and looking up to their actions and what they do on a daily basis and trying to model themselves after them without that person even knowing it in that position. So it's important to kind of internalize, and even if there isn't anyone, to almost think of it in that way, because it sets you up for that position, right?
Right. And with social media, we have no idea who's watching.
It's true.
And I have people that to me are almost strangers. Like, they know my name because they've seen me on a stage or they've seen me speak. I have no idea who they are, but they're watching, and we've become friends on like Facebook or any of the different social medias, and they'll come up and they'll be like, oh, hey, I saw you in Kansas, or they know what's going on. They're watching. And it's at the gas station, at the grocery store. People are watching. They see how you behave. I know I'm watching. I see a mother that's not watching her children and their children are in danger. You're immediately like, you might want to do something about that, right? We watch others and we look to that, and we're always leaders.
I think that's a great point that you brought up. I kind of narrowed it into someone who's in your close proximity, but I think as you said, with social media, we touch so many lives on a daily basis, and we don't even really realize that. And so that's a very powerful thing to consider. Think about how many people you're influencing, whether or not you know it. I mean, I think a lot of people would reflect a little bit more on the actions that they take on a daily basis if they really thought about it in that sense. But I do want to go back to the comment that you made about looking in yourself and finding and not comparing yourself to others. I think we all have something to bring to the table. We all have a different perspective. We all have an asset that we can bring. And really finding what you're good at deep down is really important to this process, right?
Well, finding what you're good at, but also respecting what others are good at too.
That's great.
Because right now in the workforce, we have a bigger diversity than we've ever had. We have companies that have half, if not more, employees work from home and a home office. We have people that have out of the country employees, and they're in the United States, right? And so the diversity is there, and we have to be able to work with others, but to appreciate their qualities and their gifts. I can speak on generations. We have everybody's like, oh, well, it's the generations, and they try to, find the problems with the generation. Well, personally, I find the gift in the generations. My son is phenomenal with technology, and he has soared in his education and in the ladder in his work. And so when I have a problem, I'm like, hey, do you want to teach me this?
Yeah.
And build on those things, because those around us, everyone has gifts. Everyone has different challenges in their life and different things that they've mastered. I've been self-employed for 35 years. I've also been married for 35 years and have raised children. And we've had a lot of really difficult things. In fact, a lot of the stories in my book, so Leadership from the Inside Out, Are You the Leader You Would Follow? I just recently launched this book, and I tell the story. So not only do I have the traits in there on what I teach, but I tell you how I learned it. What I had to overcome to get there and why I see it differently.
That's great. And I was going to mention too about your book as well. The one thing that I really appreciate in kind of skimming through it was the fact that it wasn't just another leadership or self-help book that's steps 1 through 10 on how to do something dry. You're a great storyteller, and you do this in a way that's almost like reading a novel, but the sense that you're getting from this is you're really taking something away from this as well. I want to ask you where people can get their hands on this book and learn more about you as well.
Right on my website, so KrisBarney.com. It's easy. It's right there on the front page. We're going to have it there for quite a while, and it's easy to access that way. I love being able to give a discount, so right now they can go on and save $7.
Wow, that's great.
So that's it's like 33% off, and it's an opportunity for them to see it from a different take. And this isn't because I've studied all the books and I've done all the things. There's lots and lots of leadership gurus out there, and there's really no new information, right? We just purpose it differently. And these traits I specifically came to from one-on-one mentoring and coaching appointments, from speaking, from all-day retreats and conventions, and actually teaching others, and really putting it, behind it, my experience from not only being a business owner, but being a mother going through really hard challenges. And I love the story piece of it, because it does read like a novel.
Yeah.
You start with the story of my son's cancer at 9 years old, and you end with him having cancer again at 25. And taking you through that process of all the different stories and all the different things that I've learned as an adult, as someone who's been very focused on being the best that you can be and always striving to improve.
That's great. And that ultimately, I think, is the biggest thing for anyone who wants to consider themselves a leader, is ultimately waking up every morning trying to be a better person than you were yesterday, right?
Right.
And trying to make not just yourself great, but the people around you great. Correct me if I'm wrong, but a good leader is someone who understands how to make themselves and uplift themselves, but a great leader can do that with everyone around them as well and uplift those who are around them as well.
Right. A leader is not the boss in the front.
That's perfect.
A leader is one who gets in the middle with everyone and gets involved and sets that bar.
Excellent. Kris, thank you so very much for coming on. We appreciate it. Absolutely. Be sure and check out her book, Leadership from the Inside Out. Are you the leader you would follow? That's a big, big question there. And definitely check out her website, KrisBarney.com, where you can get your hands on this book. $7 off right now. So be sure and head over there and purchase yourself a copy. We'll be right back with a little bit more right here on Mountain Connections.